diss, daily diss, daily diss with Mr. CC. Daily diss, daily diss, daily diss with Mr. CC. He's mean, he's rad, he's so in charge. His disses are obscene and his cuss is large. You piss on him and he'll hate on you. You hate on him and he'll piss on you. Oh yeah, but daily diss, daily diss, daily diss with Mr. CC. Oh, daily diss, daily diss, daily diss with Mr. CC. Daily diss, daily diss, daily diss with Mr. CC.
Hey yo, and welcome to the first edition of the Daily Diss. I am Mr. CC, and on this first edition I'll be talking about Bill Goldberg, aka Goldberg, a man who became a professional wrestler after his football career in the NFL didn't quite pan out. But before I get into that, I'm just going to explain briefly about what the Daily Diss is. It is a show where I take a topic, whether it be a person, a news item, or a video I've seen on YouTube, or anything, and I will just rant on it. And I'll do my best to put a link down below in the description to the news item, or to the video, or what have you, to give you a better understanding of what I'm ranting on. So without further ado, let's get to it. Bill Goldberg entered professional wrestling after being discovered somewhere. And then from what I understand, it was in a gym by a few wrestlers that were in WCW at the time. Now, he was a professional football player in the NFL, but he couldn't continue on his career because of an injury, which I think is totally bunk, because a lot of professional football players in the NFL, or CFL for that matter, can continue on their careers after sustaining an injury. But that was his choice to retire, and that is what it is. But the real focus is on him and in the wrestling business. And here's the thing. He was given 6 months of training, and then given his monster push. And within about a year or so, he was WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with him being World Heavyweight Champion if he was better prepared and better groomed for it, and not just given this monster push, squashing guys with the bogus, trumped-up winning streak. And even Bill Goldberg, who's a mark for himself, believes his winning streak was legit, and that's not true. He was just given these wins and given guys to squash in front of him, including some very talented wrestlers. But WCW felt that they needed to make this guy and not anybody else, because in the 90s he was the only one they made. Guys like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio weren't really pushed to that next level, because WCW was only using guys that were made elsewhere. Guys like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Kevin Nash, to name a few. So he was given this opportunity and paid large sums of money, a lot of money. And now that's what part of what people hate about him. He's a greedy piece of crap. He just wants to be paid like it's 1998, and he thinks he's still relevant. But unfortunately he's not. He's not relevant to this new generation of fans. And if you go back long enough, like at least 7 years ago, that was the last time he was ever relevant. He went to the WWE and then was in there for about a year with a contract, and purposely threw that match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. They were both leaving, so why should they do their boss at the time, Vince McMahon, WWE, and all that, a solid or do what they're supposed to do and actually put on a good match? But with Goldberg, he can't put on a good match. That's another problem. He didn't really perfect his wrestling ability, and he was a botcher, which means he would screw up a lot of moves. He would botch moves, and that's exactly what he did in his WCW pay-per-view match against Bret Hart in Toronto. He basically landed a kick to the head of Bret, which concussed him, and as a result, Bret Hart retired after that. So he was given, and that's all due to 6 months of training. Yes, I know that screw-ups and botches can happen, but with Goldberg, I should say, it was probably more frequent. But Goldberg is just this guy that just, I can't see him as truthful because because he can't truthfully say that he deserved it. He can't truly say he deserved it, whether he says he did or not. He was greener than goose shit. Seriously, he was so green that even with all those years put in, he still wasn't that good. And for a guy that should have improved some, he was so green and yeah, you know the business, but that doesn't make you not green. I mean, how can a guy be green for 6 years, 7 years, And it's the problem that he even bashed the wrestling business, talked bad about it. The business that made him who he is, made him the household name, he just basically didn't respect it. And that's something you don't do. You respect what you were given and respect what came before you. And for some reason, he couldn't do that. I don't know why. That's just how it was. So it's unfortunate that Goldberg couldn't be more respected. And even guys in the locker room in WCW couldn't respect him, like Chris Jericho. And they had a little bit of a what you would call a wrestling match, an actual legit wrestling match. And Chris Jericho made him his bitch. And it's because I can understand their frustration with the whole Bill Goldberg situation, him getting his monster push, or as I like to call it, his push to the moon. And when other guys deserved it way more than he did. And now with the news going around that Bill Goldberg is training harder than ever to get back into the ring to do this charity event in Africa. Now, I don't know the charity, but that's neither here nor there, because what the point of it is that I can't truly believe and buy into all this truth that Bill Goldberg is saying that it's for charity, and other people who buy into his hype. I just can't. Goldberg is one of those guys that, as I said, didn't respect the business, so why should he do it for any other reason than charity? I mean, it's to fuel his own ego, getting back in the spotlight, and to get his name back out there. And it's unfortunate. I don't know how much they'll be paying him, but it has to be something good, or else he wouldn't do it. Maybe I'm wrong, and who knows? Maybe I am wrong. So, and the fans are the worst about Goldberg. Basically they are just these fans that drive me absolutely crazy. They think he's the man. Oh, he's so awesome. He can beat up anybody. Goldberg can kick anybody's ass. Blah blah blah. And all that stupid shit. And they're so delusional about it that they don't realize what a fucking douchebag he is. And it's the point of the fact of the matter is they buy into the hype, and they're still buying into the hype 6-7 years later. And it's unfortunate that they have to act so retarded about this whole thing with Goldberg, but that's just who they are. And they will argue with you to the death about it, about Goldberg and how awesome he is, which he's actually not. If you've ever seen any of his wrestling matches, you'll see he has a spear and a jackhammer, and that's not saying a lot, and that's saying a lot actually, because there are other guys in the business who only have the 5 moves, or what's called the 5 moves of doom. So I don't buy into any of this. I don't buy into the Goldberg hype. and he's overrated piece of shit that should never step into business, because you have to respect what you do in order to do it, and that's something he's never done. And it's unfortunate that a guy who doesn't respect the business got so much. And this, hopefully this is his last venture in wrestling, and goes back to his low-rated, shitty cable TV shows like Bull Run or Pros vs. Joes, or goes back to trying to think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to MMA, and goes in commentating. Because just because you watch MMA does not mean you know what you're talking about. Yes, Goldberg, that means you. So, I want to hear your thoughts about Goldberg and what you think about him in the comments down below, or create a video response. And for tomorrow's episode, just tune in and see what it's all about. And until then, see you on the flip side.